In this video, I'll talk about the superposition principle. So the superposition principle tells you the total force acting onto a charge due to many charges. So in this example, let's say you have three charges, Q1, Q2, Q1, Q2, and Q3. And we are interested in calculating the total force acting onto the charge Q3 due to charge Q1 and charge Q2. Okay. So how do we find out the total force? So the first thing you have to find out what is the force acting onto the charge 3 due to the charge 1. And then you have to find out what is the force acting onto the charge 3 due to the charge 2. This charge is positive, this is positive, and this is negative. So the force that is onto charge 3 due to charge Q1 is repulsive because both are positive charges, so they try to repel each other. So the direction of the force onto the charge 3 due to the charge 1 is away from the line. So if you connect a line, then this force F13 is away from the charge. And now the charge Q2, which is negative, and the charge Q3 is positive, so the force will be attractive force. So the direction is given by this way because there is an attraction, so this direction is towards this charge Q2. So now how are you going to solve it? So the total force acting onto the charge Q3 due to charge Q1 and Q2 is the vector sum of all the forces. So here now, so look at this equation now. This is the net force onto the charge Q3, which is the vector sum of this force and this force. That is the force due to the charge Q1 and the force due to the charge Q2. So you have to add them in a vectorically. All right, let me give you an example. How do you solve now? Okay, so the one way of solving this one will be so now let's say, so how are you going to solve this equation or this kind of force? So the first thing you have to do is you have to choose an axis. So here I'm going to choose this as my x-axis, this is my y-axis. All right, x and y. And then all the forces, then you can resolve all the forces into two components. So this is my x-axis and this is my y-axis. All the forces, so this force, you see this force here, so you have to resolve this force into two components. So you can resolve this force into one. This is the x component and this is y component. The same way you have to resolve this force, this into two components, one along the x-axis and another along the y-axis. Okay, so let me redraw this one better here. So you have one force acting along this way and you have another force acting along this way. So in order to solve this equation, you choose an axis here, x-axis and y-axis, and then resolve this force into this force along the x-axis and along the y-axis. The same way you can resolve this force into two components along x-axis and along y-axis. What you see now, the force, the total force along the x-axis are in opposite direction and the total force along the y-axis are in the same direction. So first we have to find out the total force, F total along x-axis. And this force, let's say this force is, what is this force? F13. So I'm calling this one as an F13x, and this is F23. So this is F23x, and this force is now F13y component, and this is F23y component. This force is F13 and this is F 2, 3. So first thing you have to find out is the total force along the x-axis. So we already have found the x component, so the total force will be F13 x component minus F23 along x component. The same way, now you have to find out the total force along the y-axis, or the total y component. And in this case, you see these two are in the same direction, so they add up together. So you can find out F13y plus F23y. You can put the negative sign here as well, because this is in the negative y direction. So this is how do you find out the total x component. Once you know the x component, that you can find out the total force, the magnitude of the total force, by F total x component, and you square them, and F total y component, and you square them. So this gives you the magnitude of the total force. And then the direction of the force, and the direction of the total force, F, or the theta total. And in this case, the angle of the originate force is given by F total y divided by F total x. So this is the mathematical description of how do you find out the total force, the magnitude and direction. And I will give you a real example in the next video. So but this is how you process, this is how you take the steps in order to calculate the total force acting onto one charge due to many charges.